My bad. Thanks. Welcome, everybody. My name is Brendan Kennedy. I'm the interim associate director of internships at CNM. And Parker Dewey's been very patient with us. We've been slowly building a partnership with them over the last several months and doing contracts and paperwork and stuff. I'm gonna talk a little bit about um, why we think this might be a good opportunity for you all as employers and our students, and then I'm going to pass it over to the Parker Dewey representatives, and they're going to talk about bit about the program itself. So basically, over the last couple of years, we have noticed that we knew a lot of CNM students are full-time workers, part-time workers. They have families, they're older, they're not all your traditional 18 to 19-year-olds, so they don't have time availability for traditional based internships or work-based learning that may take them for 20 hours a week or something. They just don't have the flexibility in their schedule to do that. And so we've been brainstorming ideas of how to solve that problem, and Parker Dewey came up. And basically, Kristen's going to go over the specifics, but it provides students an opportunity to do some project-based deliverable activities while getting a educational stipend to offset some of that, basically to make sure they get paid. And it provides you all some flexibility as employers to think about projects that can be done in kind of a chunked time way. From our perspective, for employers, this isn't the limit. You can do kind of anything that fits within some parameters, but thinking about like social media, digital media, research stuff. If we get some film folks on, like editing, anything that kind of can be done remotely is like a good fit for this type of specific program. But I will zip my lid after that and let the experts take over. Thank you all for coming.
So thank you, Brendan. Really excited to officially launch the program today and to just really appreciate the continued support from Brendan and Ashley and the rest of the team over at CNM. So for today's conversation, just a couple of housekeeping things before we dig in. We're recording today's session, so if you have to hop or leave early or whatever, if you want to pass this along to a colleague, yes, we're recording this. We'll send the recording and the slides after today's webinar. For the purpose of today's conversation, we're going to be very focused on how to get started, because as you're about to see, there is a really great funded opportunity, way for you to participate in this for a CNM and engage a CNM student at no cost to your organization. It is time-based though, so time is limited, and want to really make sure you know what you need to do so you can get started right away. So that being said, I want to just jump into a little bit more about Parker Dewey, just so you have a bit of an understanding of the organization I am representing today. So as you may have noticed, our logo is essentially a Venn diagram with three primary stakeholders: students, companies or organizations like yourselves, and schools, partners like CNM. Now, to start with you all, our purpose and goal is to help you access, engage, assess, and ultimately hire early career talent. Early career talent, what does that mean? Well, moving on to my second stakeholder is students. Early career talent might be current students, it might be recent grads, it might be folks like Brendan was describing that, like many CNM students or just college students in general, that are juggling 1 million things in addition to going to school, and who are excited to put to work what they're learning in the classroom, but just don't have time to do a traditional internship or to juggle another full-time or part-time job on top of whatever else might be paying the bills. So this is a really unique opportunity for you to engage those students, to get them excited about working with your organization, and maybe even find the next great hire for your team. Which leads me to the folks at CNM and our hundreds of other partner institutions. We're honored to be able to support institutions like CNM, and just to help provide yet another opportunity for you to connect with their students and recent grads. Great question. So for the purpose of today's program, what we're going to talk about is a funded opportunity that is exclusively available, yes, for CNM students. If you do have interest in students at other schools, yes, Parker Dewey does work with hundreds of other academic institutions. So happy to talk further about any of those relationships. Some of these schools do have similar types of programs, but again, for the purpose of today's conversation, we're very focused on the CNM students for today. So that being said, let me go ahead and just dig right in. So our primary method of engaging students is through what we call micro-internships. Now, Parker Dewey founded the concept of a micro-internship about 10 years ago, and we define them as short-term, paid professional projects that are completed on demand by early career talent. Now, there's a lot of things in that definition, so let me unpack it a little bit. First of all, these are designed to be project-based opportunities focused on a specific deliverable. Now, Brendan gave you a few examples of those at the onset. So you might have some social media content that you need to have. You know your company needs social media. You don't have time to figure it out or just don't interested in it or what. That's a great project to delegate to a student that is probably far more up to speed than I certainly myself on Instagram or TikTok or any of the other things that I just have never taken the time to figure out. But it's designed to be a project-based experience. So if you're looking for a full-time social media manager, great. Maybe this project can help you identify a student who would be a great fit for that longer-term role. But the project itself is designed to be short-term. Most micro-internships take between 10 to 40 hours in total. That's work being done by the student, by the micro-intern. Now, these are all designed to be completed on demand. So projects that you have right now, not something that you think you're going to have 6 months from now. This is designed, again, year-round to give you that just-in-time support, but also to make it really, really easy for you. Why do we make it easy? Well, we believe that in order for a micro-internship to be accessible to as many students as possible, it needs to be paid fairly. And so thanks to the generous support of CNM, you have this great opportunity to engage CNM students at no cost on projects that are expected to take about 25 hours of work by the student. The students will be paid upon completion by Parker Dewey. The students will receive $550 for completing that micro-internship, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Similarly, you do this project with a student. They're amazing. You want to hire them for that open longer-term role, whether that's an internship, part-time job, or even full-time job. Fantastic. There is no cost for you to hire them long-term. That is our mission here at Parker Dewey. We want this to be the great way for you to find your next awesome coworker, the next great member of your team. Now, when thinking about these projects, keep in mind that no matter whether you're participating through this funded CNM funded program, or you're maybe after the program's completed, funding it on your own, again, Parker Dewey always handles that payment to the students. They're on our books, not yours. That's designed to make it easy. So you don't have to worry about how does it all work from an administrative standpoint. You set the price, you set the scope of work, the deliverables, the timeline, and Parker Dewey will take care of the rest. But keep in mind, these projects are designed to be professional. So this isn't babysit my kids, walk my dog, anything like that. These are designed to be projects that align to what a student would be learning in their academic coursework, but also what you would want a typical intern or entry-level employee to be doing, those kinds of projects. So to give you a few more granular details about the CNM-funded program, know that for the students, and this goes to the question Grace asked a little bit ago in the chat, these students must be current CNM students. They must be at least 18 years of age. So maybe you know somebody who's dually enrolled, or again, they have to be at least 18. They have to be a current CNM student. They have to have authorization to work in the US or have an individual taxpayer ID number. And we'll talk a lot more about that if that's relevant. But again, won't go into details with the purpose of today's quick conversation. Now, for your organization, the sky's the limit when it comes to the type of company, and that you could be a for-profit, a nonprofit, a government entity, you could be a small startup, you could be a large corporation. The one thing that you need to remember is this is a time-based, limited time opportunity, and that due to the funding source, these projects must be completed by the student by the end of June. Now, can you work with multiple projects? Absolutely. Can you post and work with multiple students? Absolutely. One other criteria that Brendan briefly mentioned, but I'll state here as well, is these must be remote projects. So projects that the students can complete remotely. Now, not only is that for most of us not that foreign of a concept, since in the last 5 years or so, we've probably all had to work remotely in one way, shape, or form, but this also makes things both easier for you. You don't have to worry about building access. Where is the student going to sit? what sort of computer are they going to use? You don't have to worry about any of that. And it also makes it more accessible for the student. So they don't have to figure out how do they get to your office at specific times or anything. So again, definitely remote projects is all that's allowed here, but that also makes it a lot easier. So to get started, 3 quick steps, and I'll explain more, all of them in greater detail, but essentially post your project, pick the student that you want to work with, and the work gets done because the student is doing it for you. Now, just to break it down a little bit more, keep in mind with every one of these steps, you have the support of the Parker Dewey team. We've been doing this for 10 years. We've learned a few things along the way about how to operationalize these projects, how to make it easy for you, what kinds of projects are really working well in this model, what maybe doesn't work as well in this model. And we're here and happy to help provide you with guidance, examples, coaching, feedback, whatever help you need all along the way. Now, just to articulate this in a little bit more detail, I'm going to start by showing you the website that we've created for the CNM program. And I'll put this link in the chat for you as well, so you don't have to wait for anyone to send it to you later. But these projects, you can see it mapped out, all the details that I just went over, as well as the timeline. You can see what happens, but this blue button here to create your account, obviously that's where you want to get started. There is no cost to creating a Parker Dewey account. There's also no cost to post a project. You can really just get started with this at no cost, real quick and easy. Now, speaking of quick and easy, we'll explain how it all works. It's mapped out for you on the slide, but there's also a handful of projects to help you start to think about what are some common types of things that students often do in this micro-internship model. Now, these 4 projects, data cleanup, social media content, website updates, these are not designed to be the only options for you. There is also a post a custom project option where you can create your own micro-internship. And if you need help, again, we have some tips, but also you can reach out to our team. We're always happy to give you some guidance on what would potentially work well or maybe not work as well in this model. But let's say you're like many of us, have a bunch of data to clean up, just don't have time to sit down and crank through all of that. Then you can click post this project, and that particular micro-internship will pre-populate for you. And so give me just a second here, and it's just title of the project. You can fill in the department for whatever department your organization needs help in. And it also will pre-populate a start date and an end date, which you can customize. Maybe you would like to have this done, maybe not so much next month, but earlier in the month. You can adjust the timing as needed. There also is a suggested starting point to the description, which again, you can customize. You can say if you need students to be a little bit more familiar with a certain type of Excel versus some other more sophisticated type of data analytics tool, etc. You can certainly highlight what might be necessary for successful completion of this project. You can then highlight the location. Why is that important? Again, these are remote projects, but maybe a member of your team is located outside of Albuquerque. Maybe they need help and they live in Boston. Maybe the student might be or have ties to the New England area. Maybe they'd be open to relocating there. Again, lots of reasons why knowing the city and state where folks might be located could be helpful, but it also can be helpful for coordinating logistics like time zones and stuff like that. This next section, you can largely leave alone because this already is pre-populated to fit with the parameters of the program. So again, these are 25-hour projects with the students receiving $550 upon completion. Now, the students aren't turning in a time card. This 25 hours of work is an estimate based on just how long it would reasonably take a student to complete that particular project. And so with this, you can also say you want to work with one student, or maybe you have a huge data set where you'd like to have a handful of students helping you so that you can get the project done more completely. You can adjust this particular number of micro interns that you're looking for to be 2, 3 students. And again, you will not pay anything thanks to the generosity of this program, but this is something where you can provide opportunities to multiple CNM students at no cost to your organization. And keep in mind, just as it says here, if you are participating in a program funded by a third party, such as this, you will not be charged. And also, as I mentioned before, there are no costs if you wish to hire the student long-term. Just wanted to bring that to your attention just so that it was super clear. Now, how will we know if you're participating in the program? Well, this next section will tell us, because there is a section that specifically says schools, and it will pre-populate CNM. Don't change this, because this will make sure that only CNM students will see this project. And so it'll help to make sure you're not getting applicants from students at other schools who may really be excited about working for your organization or doing your project. But if you selected one of them, you would need to fund that project on your own. So again, if you are open to working with students elsewhere, great, you can X this out, and now you'll see students from other schools when they apply, but know that we would be sending you an invoice for that project should you decide to select one of those students. Now, the last couple of sections here asks you for you to specify your application questions. And again, this was pre-populated to align with the program. We're going to make sure that the students verify that they are a current student from CNM, but you can add additional questions if you'd like. Think of this application question section as a way for you to replace the need to do a phone screen for a student. If you're thinking about this project as potentially being a precursor, a bit of an audition for a longer term role, great. What questions would you normally ask a student during a phone screen? Ask those here. Maybe 2, 3, 4 questions are not uncommon in this section, and you can just skim through their answers, and it saves you a whole lot of time versus doing a phone screen with every one of these students who apply. So going back to the slide deck, I will just briefly show you. This is where you can see those screenshots of what I just walked you through, as well as what it looks like when you want to make this just available to CNM students. Once you have posted your project, you will only see applicants from the students who have applied. So in other words, you're not going to see every CNM student that has an account on Parker Dewey. You'll only see those who've applied to your project. Why? Well, it helps to ensure that the student's privacy is maintained. They're not going to be able to see a student unless they're interested in your organization. But it also makes it easier for you. So you're not seeing applications or information about students and having to guess whether or not you're interested in their project. You'll know they're interested because they applied to your micro-internship. You'll also see their profiles. You'll see if they've uploaded their resume or LinkedIn profile, you'll be able to see that information. And you'll see how they answered those short answer application questions that you posted as part of your project description. And so once you've selected one or however many students that you want to work with, work gets done. So you start working with the student immediately. You get their contact information, where we recommend you set up a kickoff meeting via Zoom, Teams, or whatever works best for you. In that conversation, we recommend that you talk about a little background behind the project, some details about what the student might need to know in order to successfully complete the project, some timeline things. Maybe you want them to complete a certain amount of work by a specific date and then more of the work by another date. Again, you can clarify that. Clarify how you want to communicate with each other, how often you want them to check in. And again, we'll send you a checklist. We'll send the student one as well of the kinds of things that you and the student should cover in that introductory phone call. Because from there, the student is typically working asynchronously on their own schedule, and it's very hands-off for you as a general rule. So you can work with them more hands-on if you'd like, but we find that most students don't need a whole lot of direction, that they're very self-motivated and they do a very, very good job of completing the tasks without a whole lot of guidance after that initial kickoff conversation. Also know though, if you're having hiccups or the student is, again, that's where the Parker Dewey support team is here and happy to help. Once the project has been completed, from there, you just go back into the Parker Dewey platform, mark that it's been completed, complete a brief survey about the student's performance. We really, really need that information so that it not only helps the student to know what they could do better or what strengths and opportunities they might have for their professional development, but that data is also really helpful for Brendan, Ashley, and the rest of the CNM team so that they can know where students are doing really well and maybe where they could provide some additional coaching and support. Now, how is this going to help you? Well, lots and lots of reasons depending on your goals. At the very least, you're getting to connect with some amazing early career talent at CNM. This might lead to the next great hire for your team, but at the very least, you're getting a project off of your to-do list by seeing the student's skills firsthand. You're not having to guess based on their resume or maybe a brief interview whether or not they're a good fit. You'll be able to know by working with them on this specific project. This doesn't take a whole lot of time from you. From posting the project to kicking it off, it's an hour max. And if you do have open early career roles, we definitely recommend that you start thinking about projects that might align to those open entry level or internships or full-time roles. How? Well, this is where the Parker Dewey team can really help. So for example, maybe you have an entry level data marketer role on your team right now. What we can help you is identify specific projects that align to the job description for that particular role. Now we help you with this. You don't have to figure this out on your own. Send us that job description and we'll help to essentially dissect it into discrete projects that will help you see the student's skills in action and see whether or not their skills align with the capabilities that you require for that role. So for example, if you need the student to be able to gather, analyze, and report marketing data, great. A data cleanup and visualization project is a great way for a student to demonstrate whether they have those skills. Because not only can you get some data cleaned up or maybe an infographic that's created, but you can also really see, does the student have attention to detail? Do they ask good clarifying questions? Do they really complete the project in a timely manner? Were they professional and working together and so on? Because all of those skills, both the technical and those core or soft skills, are incredibly valuable so that you can make a more informed decision of who a good fit is for those open longer term roles. For example, if we look at these 12 attributes that are on the slide, it's difficult, I would argue impossible to name a role where these 12 things are not important. Any role, or any one of us, when we're thinking about who we want to work with, who we want to hire, these are the things we want. And by working with these students on these micro internships, you're able to really discern, do these students have these core skills? For example, just by simply applying to that micro internship, you know that they're a self-starter because they had to take the initiative to be able to take the time to apply for your project. You know then that they're interested in your company. You know that they have attention to detail that's hopefully really, really good if they put together a strong application, or maybe you don't pick them because attention to detail is not one of their strengths. By working together on that project, you can then discern certain things like how coachable are they? How professionally did they communicate? When you gave them feedback, did they run with it or did they ignore it? Did they turn the work in on time or were they late? And then, of course, the product itself, the final work product, you're able to see, did they incorporate feedback? Did they put together a thoughtful, comprehensive, professionally delivered result, whatever it is that you need to have done? So all of these things, again, no matter the role, are really important, and these projects can help you sort out whether a student has these skills. And we also hear that this really benefits the students. Not only are they getting this paid professional experience, but you're working with them in a way that they've told us that they want to be recruited. Because I know CNM students, they're largely in their first or second year of college. And when we survey students, we find that 75% of them really, really eager to explore their career paths in those first couple of years. We've also heard from students that most of these traditional recruiting methods don't allow the students to be able to demonstrate all that they can do. Going up to a company at a career fair, putting together a resume, really tells you so much. This allows them to be able to more fully demonstrate the skills that they would bring to your organization. And frankly, it's how they've told us that the way that they want to be recruited. They want to put to work what they're learning in the classroom. This gives both you and them a very low stakes and a potentially very valuable way to do so. And for you and your organization, from one platform, there's a lot of benefits because you can engage students across thousands of academic programs, schools, majors, and so on. If diversity, equity, and inclusion is important to your organization, you know that 80% of the students who've been selected for micro-internships have come from historically underrepresented backgrounds. They're chosen based on the skills, though, not based on any other KPI or metric. This is the skills-based hiring at the core. And the students do a phenomenal job, as evidenced by the fact that 97% of the students who've completed micro-internships, their supervisors have said that that project met or exceeded their expectations. So again, really valuable metrics for all of these different projects. Now, I want to just kind of wrap up with just a couple of specific examples of where and how this could plug in to your larger recruiting strategy. So for example, maybe you go to career fairs, but students don't know who you are. That's a really common challenge for a lot of organizations. And so in this particular example, growing student awareness and employer brand, if students don't know who your company is, here's how micro-internships can help. For example, we've seen companies who actually are promoting their micro-internships at career fairs, because now you have something that you can offer to every single student that you're meeting, plus having a really great differentiator from all the other companies that are there. Or maybe your goal is to really reach those students as early as possible in their academic program. You really want that first year student so that you can start to stay on their radar, even if they decide to transfer to a four-year institution. Again, participating in a program like this is a phenomenal way to start to build your pipeline as early as possible. So those are just two examples, and there's certainly some others depending on your particular goals. So I see a question about, is there a limit to how many internships a particular company can do? I'm going to pass that actually back to Brendan, just to make sure that we have a clear, straight from the source understanding of that particular response. So Brendan, if you wouldn't mind answering Tara's question.
No, there's not a limit right now. I mean, I think what we would ask is something, Grace, no, they're not covered by workers' comp. That's why they're remote. They're paid 1099 contract workers, and that's why we've inserted the remote option. But to go back to the limit question, I think it would be, just to be transparent, Kristen pointed this out. They've done this with, I think, hundreds of schools, right? You've had hundreds of partners. So this is our first iteration at it. So this is CNM. I think we're the only college in New Mexico that has this partnership. But this is our first rollout of it. So thank you for coming. But I think I would say something similar to when I talk to folks about taking our more traditional, 20 hours a week in office interns, is that think about the capacity of your teams to organize and not mentor, but oversee these projects. So if you have a team of 5 who's working on something and they want like 7 people to do projects, as long as they're comfortable putting in the time needed to, again, the mentorship piece is a little different because they're kind of faster, quicker projects, but just having the capacity to keep track of those. So if you were to request like 100 people for a 5-person team, we might kind of be like, that's funky. So I think that's, again, as our first rollout, I would say think about your team's ability to kind of keep these folks on task or check in with them, but we don't have a hard limit that we've placed over it as of yet.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Tara, that's also another example of something, and thank you, Brendan, where we can provide some guidance, because have we seen projects where I would say a small army of students, when I say small army, we've seen projects with 50 students working on it. What does that look like? Well, obviously very different than the hand-holding that we see from other projects where the students are checking in every other day. It really depends on the project. And the projects where there's many students, 10 plus, for instance, as Brendan alluded, it's very hands-off. There's usually a kickoff call where all of the students are invited. That's recorded in case students can't make it. And then the touch points are very minimal. But to Brendan's point, in order to have a really good quality experience for the students, we do recommend that this is something where you do plan on touching base with the students at least after the kickoff call, maybe once, to check in, make sure they're doing all the right things, especially with the 25-hour project. That's something that will typically take place over the course of several weeks, not typically over a Monday through Friday timeframe, although we have seen that. So just thinking again about your team, I think Brendan provided some really good guidance about your capacity, as well as just making sure that's a positive experience for everybody. Are there any other questions? Yeah, good question. So Tom, this is a fixed fee engagement. So the students are not turning in timesheets. They are just paid upon completion of the project. And that's, again, where we here at Parker Dewey are happy to help you with scoping the micro-internship in that deliverables section when you're posting the project, being as specific as possible about saying, I need the student to complete X, and making X as clear, so that the student can then self-select that, yep, I can do this, I know what I'm doing, I'll be able to crank through this, versus, oh boy, I've never used that piece of software, I will need a lot of time to get up to speed. What is clear with this is, again, it's early career types of projects, so not something where the students are necessarily going to be 10, 20-year veterans on some really sophisticated different tools. These are designed to be more entry-level types of projects. But also, if you have, Tom, a project where you're not really sure, think about an opportunity to maybe unbundle it so that you can hire student A for the first iteration of the project. And if they're maybe doing really well but not quite finished, you could always rehire that same student to complete the work if the scale of the project was a little bit longer than you expected. We've also seen scenarios where you have several students working on the same project to be able to spread the work out a little bit. That not only it provides more opportunities for more students, but it also allows you to get the project done faster, depending on how you want to roll it. But I hope that's helpful, Tom. Yes, of course. And I'm going to put my email in the chat in case you have specific questions or just follow up, things that you think about later on. I'm more than happy to answer those questions. As Brendan said, while this is our first time working with CNM in this type of capacity, we do have a lot of experience doing this type of program with a lot of other academic institutions as well as nonprofit organizations and other entities. So happy to share with you what we've learned, and certainly happy to help move things along. To the question of Jose, can the student be in the office or only remotely if we have the capacity? Great question. For the purpose of this program, the CNM funded micro-internships, these do need to be remote opportunities. Parker Dewey does allow on-site projects. They're very rare, to be honest, like less than 5% of the micro-internships are in-person opportunities. But for the purpose of these CNM funded projects, that does need to be a remote engagement. Now, as the timing our webinar kind of winds down, it looks like folks are starting to drift away, which no problem at all. I'm going to go ahead and pause and stop the recording. But if you do have